What a curious word. The kind of word that can make us cringe, feel defensive, or even distant. But you know, sometimes why is the key that can unlock so much to our lives. Join me as we explore the why with fascinating contributors to the world, those that entertain us, inform us, teach us about life, and if we're lucky, inspire the next in all of us. I'm your host, Dr. Rod Berger, and welcome to Headroom, a production of Rainlight and co-produced by Old Soul. Let's go. Well, most of you know my affection that I have for the Nordics and the people and the culture. And so when I am asked to connect with somebody who resides there, I am inclined to say yes, because there is something about the spirit of the Nordics, and especially what I call my second home, Stockholm, the people there, the energy, the innovation, and what they're doing to solve so many different problems around the world, or opportunities to expand on the answers that we have for challenges that are facing our species. And I don't know, maybe 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, I was introduced to a professional who has changed careers. He's moved around the professional table, and I just found him to be incredibly engaging and powerful in what he's doing. And selfishly, I hope that he and his company win, whatever win means, because I think it's a win for all of us, not just in Stockholm, but around the world and of every generation. And so I hope that I can do justice by Dr. Matthias Bernow, who is a really, really interesting guy who I think is doing some great things. And he's a dad. He cares about these things. So it's not just transactional. And that to me is really, really important as we dive into a story that I think needs to be told. So Matthias, it's so nice to spend some time with you. And I hope that you had a nice holiday with your family and you're rejuvenated now that we are in the new year. I want to start with this, and we'll go through your background, and I want to understand the different seats at the table that you've had professionally. But we're talking about stem cells, right? Just loosely and broadly. I want to talk about it from the frame of a story. Where are we in the story of stem cells? And at what point in this book, that we may not know the ending yet, did you enter this story?
Thank you, Rod. Thank you for that very nice introduction. To dive straight into your question, in that story, we're probably at Star Wars Episode 4, I guess, because it's all about to break out. Somebody will sooner write the Episode 1, 2 through 3, which will cover the first 30 years of research. But I think we're now at an inflection point in the history of healthcare, where previous inflection points has been antibiotics, meaning that we could treat what is today considered simple infections, what people actually died from 8 years ago, which also facilitates surgery. Without antibiotics, we couldn't do proper surgery today. And to put it in the words of a previous dean at the Harvard School of Medicine, he said that stem cells holds the potential to do for chronic diseases what antibiotics did for infectious diseases. It's going to change the world. Before antibiotics, we died from simple infections. Today, 8 years later, we die from chronic diseases. Heart infarctions, strokes, dementia, diabetes. We suffer from life quality lowering diseases such as arthritis and other signs of aging. And now, with the promise of stem cells, for the first time, there is a potential to maybe alleviate some of that disease burden, sometimes maybe even treat it. A lot of research still to be done. But for me, as a medical doctor and as a CEO of a stem cell company, what I'm truly hoping for is that we're going to be able to harvest the preventative strength in stem cells and to treat preventative and postpone or delay the onset of the chronic diseases. And that will truly be a starting point for a story that will change the course of healthcare, change the course of our lives, and probably change the course of the world to some part as well.
Tell me about the story of you as a medical doctor. And I know obviously you've got your business degree in economics, but what was going on in that story professionally that then you decided to enter sort of this part of the story when you did? Were there assumptions about, in essence, what the tasks were at hand, and how did you evaluate your own abilities from your perspective in being able to pen or author some needed pages in the next step. What was going on for you professionally that you said, yes, this is a good time to get in at this point in time, in episode 4, as you put it?
Oh, who would be the authors of this story? Well, it's a bit classic. Well, I guess my parents, my family would be the authors. They gave me a very good childhood. They said that nothing was impossible. I come from a family of doctors. They sent me off to business school, moving from a small town to Stockholm, our capital in Sweden. And from day one, I thought I was amazing. But then I realized that from Stockholm School of Economics, everybody was going to London to become bankers, and that was not the life I foresaw for myself. So I instead moved to Karolinska, the top medical university in the northern part of Europe, and started my journey to become a doctor. And from day one, I realized this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to impact the world. But I had so much fun at Stockholm School of Economics, so I kind of continued fiddling with some courses there. In some kind of manic episode a few years later, I ended up with double degrees. That was never my intention, but it's been
a manic episode.
I couldn't do it again today. I could when I was 25 somehow. But that has been my stroke of luck in life, because then I've been moving in between those two worlds ever since. I spent 7 years as a clinical physician, mostly in the emergency room at Karolinska, also some years in family medicine around Sweden and Norway. I've done my time as a management consultant with Boston Consulting Group, also working with healthcare. And 8 years ago, I kind of continuously searching for new and developing tasks, and always thinking about how can I make the maximal impact in terms of improving working environment for my colleagues, outcome for my patients, decreasing the cost for taxpayers. In Sweden, healthcare is publicly financed. And I always looked for the next big thing, and I've worked with amazing people in the ER at the Boston Consulting Group. And then I found my way home 8 years ago as an entrepreneur, working with the digitalization of healthcare, and co-founded and built one of the largest platforms in Sweden for telehealth, helping physical care providers to meet their patients digitally. In Sweden, forming the concept of physical healthcare, digital when possible and physical when needed. And I was on a fantastic journey with that. My wife was pregnant with our second child when the founders behind Cell Collabs called me and said, Matthias, we've seen your journey. We've seen your double background. We've seen your entrepreneur, your years as entrepreneur, both through thick and thin. We now have a frustrated professor from Karolinska, who's one of the leading authorities in the world on a certain kind of stem cells. And while we can tell you more about the background, they are amazing, and there's a fantastic opportunity now. We're at an inflection point in the history of medicine, but the world is short on mesenchymal stem cells. We are going to make them available and affordable. In short, we're going to democratize the access to these stem cells to change healthcare in the world. And we're looking for a CEO. Are you up for the task? Ooh, deep breath, need to go home, speak to my fantastic wife.
Yeah, how do you have that conversation with your pregnant wife and you have a young child as well?
Well, that's normally a really tough one. Saying that, honey, I brought us out with taking risk now for 5 years, and we're just making it, building a fantastic company. I want to dive into something new, and we're having our second one on the way. And she's super cool, and she just needed to look at me and say, Matthias, I know this is right for you. This is right for us. This is something that we'll do as a family. Go, go, go. And since then, we've been traveling at the speed of light with Cell Collabs. We've raised money that we needed. We've built a factory here in Stockholm that is approved by the Swedish FDA for GMP production. GMP being a key acronym in the world of stem cells. We can talk more about that later, but GMP is the highest quality level. So wherever you go, if you're considering doing stem cells anywhere, look for GMP. We've done the tech transfer from Professor Leblanc, the professor behind it all, and from Karolinska, who did the production for Professor Leblanc. We scaled it up more than 100 times. We validated the process, and we've got the approval from the Swedish FDA. And now, 3 years into the journey, we're selling our mesenchymal stem cells for investigational use to medtech companies, biotech companies, research groups, university hospitals, and also pushing clinical trials around the world with the true aim to accelerate the access to these cells within the regulatory frameworks. So a journey to democratize the access for people in need or maybe just in demand of the cells.
You know what's interesting, and I don't know if this translates across our cultures, but a lot of times, especially think about young kids. You've got young kids, and my kids are in sports. There's a certain kid for, in essence, every sort of lane of sports, meaning if you like sports that are fast from the word go when the whistle blows, you're going to probably stay in that line of sports or activities. But if you're in sports that, maybe like baseball, where it's a different sort of tempo and there's a different time element, you might not want to cross over and vice versa. Talk about sort of working in an emergency room and the pace. Now, I never have, but I can just imagine, right? And Hollywood, I think, has done a pretty good job of, or maybe they've pumped that full of adrenaline, maybe that it's not. But I would imagine there's so much energy. Did you know going into this entrepreneurial journey that either you needed that kind of speed at which to solve problems, or that's where you were best at what you could do? Did you know that going in?
I think most people are just waiting for somebody to call them out as frauds. I do my best every day. I bring the best Matthias to work, and I get to work with amazing people. And that is how we change the world together. Looking from the outside, yeah, I probably do need the adrenaline. If it's slow over time, it becomes less interesting. There's a fantastic quote in a book called House of God that describes healthcare from a very cynical perspective and showing it for what it really is. But when you get a person into your emergency room, if it's a cardiac arrest, the first thing you should do is take your own pulse. Because if you're stressed, you're not going to help the patient. You're not going to be able to direct the staff around you to make the best out of it. And I truly enjoy being in the middle of the storm, needing to make fast decisions. But just like in the ER, as a CEO of a stem cell company, I'm probably not going to be the smartest one in the room. I'm going to be dependent on the entire team. Somebody keep pumping the heart, somebody doing an analysis, somebody putting an IV line in. And the same goes when you're on a company. I would be nothing without my management team. And we would be nothing without the staff. And we're only interesting because we build on more than 2.5 decades of research coming out of Karolinska Institute by one of the leading stem cells professors in the world. We're a vehicle to create the value and health that can be possible given all the fantastic work that has been done over the past 30 or 40 years in healthcare.
You know what's so interesting, Matthias, and this to me absolutely is a cultural difference, and I hope the audience is hearing what you're saying, because you are front and center putting everybody that is on your team, the staff, right, that community that is bringing all of this opportunity at the forefront. What you're not doing is putting yourself, which does not, I'm not saying it's not American, but look, we are known also for being, if not bold, brash as leaders. And that there can be times of this me kind of sentimentality. Could you explain, and I've had enough of my own experiences, and I have shared anecdotally with the audience, but can you talk about Jantologen and the law of Janta and how that plays a role, and not, here's where sort of the flip is on the question, not locally, but in a global marketplace, and how do you, in essence, have to do you have to keep that at the forefront of your mind or somewhere close so that you can engage with other cultures in a way where they understand where it's coming from? Because I think it's antithetical to what people think America is, or the West in that regard, this sort of, I own the mountaintop, I'm putting a flag here. And culturally, it is incredibly different in the Nordics. And I would love for you to sort of share that and how you then apply that to working, not just in Sweden or the Nordics, but broadly.
Well, to first set the framework for what is the Jante law that we have in Sweden, it comes from not a very good cultural perspective, where nobody is allowed to say that they're better than anyone else. You should kind of hold yourself back. And that is not necessarily a good thing, because there are so many good people that don't reach their full potential because they're taught that they should take a step back rather than a step forward. I think being humble and admitting and lifting your colleagues and giving them the tools that they need to success is probably one of the best ways to work as a leader. I know from track record that I can do good stuff, but at the end of the day, if I'm, as a doctor, if I meet somebody who's severely ill and I'm outside the hospital, there are like 3 or 4 things that I can do. And then I lack all the machinery and all the good stuff and all my colleagues. And the same as a CEO for a stem cell company. If you held a gun to my head, I couldn't produce a stem cell. I need my GMP engineers, my chief of production, my quality officer, and I need my business development team and my research team. But together, we orchestrate a pretty good movie, and we run it at not only 2x, but at the speed of light. In 3 years, we've accomplished what should have been done in 5 to 10 years, and we've done it for 10% of the cost. And that is part of our journey to make this happen. And I think I was about to say in 2025, but I'm not even sure that is true. I think the best way to get the most out of every one of your colleagues is to let them try, give them a task that is bigger than they've had before, and then give them a sense of security, knowing that if they win, if they succeed, you'll celebrate, and if they fail, you'll help them. And working this way, 8 or 9 out of 10 times, everyone gets it right. They do their best and they get it right. And the 1 or 2 times they fail is not too bad. We'll sort it out together. We'll fix it. And at the end of the day, if I give someone a task and they don't make it, then obviously I did wrong. Either I didn't give them enough resources or I gave it to the wrong person. So
this is in your DNA. I mean, I can tell this now in our second. I mean, it is a part of your DNA. It's a part of the way in which you think about leading and coalescing around talent and understanding that we are humans and there's variability in when we're going to succeed and fail. And there are lots of different things that go into those different elements. So then apply that to competition within the biotech space, because for many people, and I think for the young entrepreneur, or the young entrepreneurs that I know, or when I'm out speaking, there's this sort of Darwinism. It's survival of the fittest, right? It's, it's almost like a clash of the titans. And then you add that layer of healthcare and sort of the attitude towards healthcare, that it's been co-opted by insurance here in the States. And I'm trying to understand how you look at competition in a world that doesn't practice the same, maybe culturally, in thinking about leadership. I wish they did, by the way. I should say I absolutely love the approach that you're talking about, because I think it allows people, it's just like, I go back to sports. It allows a player to work through the process of understanding competition, their skill level, where they can grow. You've got to give them space to breathe in that regard. And I think professionally, that's what you're talking about. So apply that now to competition across your industry, and how that your approach, I think there in Stockholm and Sweden writ large, plays a valuable role in the approach.
Well, the stem cell industry overall, we need to have more financing, and there's so much more work that needs to be done. So competition is a very good thing. I love when I get a good competitor on the market. There's a problem because there's too many charlatans and people claiming to do things and fooling people to get different treatments that does not work. So that's once again why I throw the word GMP out there. Good manufacturing practice. Always look for that. There are so many that are out to fool you. But when I get a good competitor, that is good for the industry. That is good for me. And it kind of goes back to giving staff tasks that are maybe above and beyond their competence. Because the worst thing you can do is aiming low and reaching your target. I think it's a former astronaut who said that if you aim for the moon and you miss, at least you're going to be among the stars. And if you aim really high and you go for it, well, you're gonna land on the moon sooner or later. And if you only get halfway, well, that's fantastic. Then we'll make it better next time around, or we'll just take the second step. So when I get competitors showing that something is possible, that's fantastic. Then I know that I can probably do the same, and I can make it even better. So competition is a very good thing, especially in the field of stem cells, and when you're working with the highest quality level and the best scientists around the world. There is so much that needs to be documented, proven. I'm happy every time I find a new competitor.
Now, I'm glad you talked about competitors and that they are very valuable in your growth and development as a company and the industry. Every good story has a villain, because it allows us to sort of, I think, outline where we are in that larger story, based on having extremes on both sides. Who is the ultimate or broad-based villain in this space? Is it too ignorant for me to think that it's pure greed for those that are either the charlatans or those that are taking advantage of an uneducated populace that just doesn't know enough about stem cells, or if whatever they do know, it's very little, or it comes from, when I think about stem cells, where have I heard of that? If I sort of wipe away conversations I've had with you or others, it's, I've heard professional athletes who go to Germany and get, stem cells into a knee, or where they've had an injury, or, there are like these subtle things that we've heard, but not this broad-based application of what stem cells mean to our species, what can be the future of them, why we should care, how do we participate. Where is the villain, I guess, in the story, and how should we understand the role that they play in the larger development moving forward?
It would be easy to say that the villain is a charlatan trying to fool people out of money. That's not the alpha villain in the story. It's a side character, and that's a problem. The absolute villain in the story of stem cells is ignorance.
Ignorance.
It's ignorance from scientists, from doctors, from financiers, from regulators, and also from the general public in not knowing enough. If you look at the history of stem cells and the mesenchymal stem cells that we're working with, and that many people believe can have fantastic effects going forward. 15 years ago, they were regulated as transplantation, and they could be used quite freely. And then the side character greed came in, and it was overly used. So they needed to change the framework, and it's been over-regulated since. It's now regulated as kind of a chemical drug product. It's called an ATMP framework, but it regulates stem cells as if it was a chemical drug product. And the complexity of manufacturing it and doing research on it and expecting to understand every part of the mode of action, like a chemical drug, that is probably not the right way to regulate it. And not having recognized that and changed the framework, at least within the past 5 years or more, is a true villain to the story. If you look at, in 2012, some Japanese researchers received the Nobel Prize in medicine for the Yamanaka factor and a kind of stem cells. Japan then realized that this can never be commercialized. This will never do good for the patients if we don't change the framework. So they did some minor changes, and suddenly Japan and later on Korea was leading the charge on mesenchymal stem cells. Now, finally, 2025, or at least over the past year, we see macro trends around the world where governments are changing their frameworks. And let's be honest, it's not being done by EMA in Europe or FDA in the US, at least not yet, even though there may be early signs that they're going to change their framework. It's being done by smaller nations around the world.
Is that because they're in fear of losing money? I always see that and think very cynically that it's, when you talked about ignorance, and that was not what I was going to, I expected you to say, but that was very powerful when you said ignorance is the villain. It made me wonder, okay, well, if people are ignorant, are they ignorant by choice? And if that's the case, is it because of a fear of a loss of something, right? I always look at people's value in sort of a value chain, right? So if you've got a child that is needing some mental health support, And they, for whatever reason, allow the parents who are struggling in their own marriage to sort of funnel that anger and that negativity to that child and identify them as the patient. Well, what happens when that's changed and that child learns how to regulate their emotions and interact at school in a more healthy way? It goes back to the parents, right? So there are all kinds of value chains. And I'm wondering where that ignorance is based. And let's just say that the regulations go away, or at least the regulatory environment is more fertile.
Mm.
Well, what happens then to the ignorance or those actors of ignorance? Is there a perception that they will lose value in the way in which they can participate, earn a living? Like, where does that sit?
What would happen if all that regulatory framework went away? Well, obviously, there are going to be regulatory authorities that would be thinking hard about what to do and how to spend their time instead. And I want to be really clear, taking away all the regulatory frameworks would probably be a disaster, because then there would be a free-for-all by the side villain would grow and become a monster, and that would be a very bad thing. If you dream of a perfect world where that would not happen, I think if you took the regulations away, then people would be more interested in looking into, so what do we know about mesenchymal stem cells? Well, they've been known for 40 years. We know that from thousands and thousands of people who've been part of clinical trials with what is now bone marrow derived mesenchymal stem cells produced according to GMP. To date, there are no known severe side effects. And this, I mean, I'm 3 years into the journey as CEO of the stem cell company. But I'm a medical doctor. It still feels strange saying that there are no known severe side effects if you have the right product produced in the right way. Because as a doctor, whenever you use any kind of treatment, there's a risk-reward algorithm that you think about. What is the risk? What is a potential benefit to the patient? And when the risk is very low, then of course you really need to consider, so the upsides, what are they? Because this seems to be an attractive product. And where there's a consensus around the scientific world when it comes to mesenchymal stem cells is that they do three things. They are anti-inflammatory, they are regenerative, and they are immunomodulatory. And why are these three things super interesting? Well, the anti-inflammatory part, they suppress inflammation. Inflammation being the main driver behind chronic disease, behind aging, and also behind several kinds of cancer. Wow, so that effect alone is obviously super interesting. Number two, they are regenerative. They can help heal damaged tissue, for what they're also used around the world. Whether it is in more aesthetic and superficial rejuvenation of the skin, or if it's for healing severe diabetic ulcers to feet instead of having to amputate the limb, or if it's after surgery. So the regenerative part is obviously super interesting, not least as science has shown when it comes to arthritis or cartilage damage in joints. And then when it comes to the immunomodulatory part, where they can help kind of reset or rebalance the immune system. Most people know about autoimmune disease, when the body starts attacking itself. And that's where the cells also have shown super interesting results. Early research, much more needs to be done. But two examples: diabetes type 1, one of the world's most well-known autoimmune diseases. It's been shown that if a person who has just been diagnosed with diabetes type 1, one treatment could prolong for how long that patient can have their own insulin production, which is obviously good for that person, not having to do as much external insulin. If you look at the metabolic syndrome instead for diabetes type 2, it's been shown that one treatment of mesenchymal stem cells could improve blood glucose values, measured as blood glucose, insulin levels, peptide C. And if you look at the broader picture, so anti-inflammatory, regenerative, immunomodulatory, there are hundreds of ongoing trials around the world. And you can throw a dart at a hospital organogram, and whatever clinic you hit, there's an ongoing trial confirming safety and showing initial interesting results. So with lesser ignorance, one would listen to what can be done and start. As a doctor, you should be curious about stem cells. Most doctors, and I can mostly speak for Swedish doctors, but most doctors, we are conservative, and that's a very good thing. We should never jump the gun early and just go for it, because there could be side effects. But MSCs, mesenchymal cells, have been used for such a long time. So we are very certain about the safety profile, knowing that
The
it
frustrating
has
part,
these
Matthias,
fantastic features. There's a huge chance to use them and improve research to fast forward the application for patients.
is that frustrating for you? Because it's frustrating for me. I don't know if this is the parent in me or just the global citizen. That when you talked about the different areas just of impact, on those three different areas, you gave diabetes, type 1 as an example, and where a patient would be able to utilize their own insulin production. Um, that is to me an example of potentially where the challenge is. And so my larger question is, how do you view the role that you play? Sure, I understand you're CEO in name, but I mean from the spirit of you. Are you an educator, an advocate? Are you an investigator, an explorer? Because if we sort of broadly if we take that diabetic example, there are sort of these phase one interventions for people, right, to help them initially deal with that diagnosis. Well, if we can write sort of a script, is a prescription for a world where they don't need maybe that first phase intervention. Well, what's going on in the margins of the industry that is supporting that, right? It's sort of like when I become cynical and I think about people in the criminal justice system. Do we really want to rehabilitate? That's a major industry. What happens if we actually find a cure and we don't have recidivism rates where they are? Well, now we may have empty cells, no pun intended, jail cells. And so I'm wondering how you balance that, because it's sort of like wanting your pilot of an airplane to be well rested, happy, excited about the journey when they're taking you over the ocean. I want the Matthiases of the world to be as engaged and excited and encouraged, because there's an environment that understands change will there will come afoot. There will be change if we can penetrate these areas, because we will increase the health outcomes of patients, and that will have then a trickle down effect on those that are providing services in an old world that is very reactionary in healthcare.
Whoa, where do I belong in this scale? Well, I'm a
Am I off? Am I off the ranch, as we might say here in the? Am I wrong? I mean, please feel free to correct me. I'm coming at it from a layman's perspective and trying to understand where maybe the rub is and why we can't push even sort of faster or apply it more generally across, healthcare issues and diagnoses.
I think I'm a diehard enthusiast, and
Thank
having
you. I'm
started
so
the journey
glad.
as a CEO of a stem cell company, realizing the potential in these cells and in this treatment, um, I quite soon learned that I didn't know very much before I was recruited to become the CEO. I mean, I'm a doctor. I know what there is to know about stem cells, but I didn't know about this particular type and the potential in them. So now I'm on a journey to educate the world together with other scientists and other competitors or colleagues in the market, recruiting more capital for doing the research. Our part of this is making the best stem cells in the world available at the lowest possible price point, which, by the way, is actually a way also to keep some of my competitors out, raising the hurdles. So we're not only doing good, we're trying to take the market as well, but that's part of the game. And in doing so, we're happy to share our technology and ourselves with anyone who's serious about this. But in doing so, I need to educate the researchers. I need to educate the doctors. I need to educate the regulators and the financiers, together with my peers in the market, together with my research team, together with my production team, together with my business development team, and together with my fantastic PR team. And today I'm doing it together with you. Highly grateful for the good questions that you're asking, and for your audience listening into this. And I hope that everybody who listens to this then talks about it at the dinner table at home and spreads to the world. Because still, when it comes to stem cells, people are thinking about the sheep dolly 20 years ago and cloning and fetal cells. And that is 20 years ago. Nobody who's working with stem cells today are working with fetal cells or cloning. Anyone who's serious about stem cells today are working with adult stem cells, which are the one where there's most publications, where there has been shown the safety record if it's the right source and they're produced in the right way, and the fantastic potential that there is. So I'm a diehard enthusiast, and I truly believe this that we're at an inflection point in the history of healthcare. And to be really clear, it's not the fountain of youth. You're not going to live till you're 200 years old if you do stem cells. But what if you can extend your healthy lifespan, your health span? And if we have 110 or 120 years that we could live biologically as a human species, we don't need to get old and frail at 70 or 75. What if we could push that to 95 or 105? Then we're going to have more time to do good in the world, to spend time with our children and our grandchildren, and travel the world in electrical vehicles or whatever you like if you need to travel, and travel more, and improve and help our co-human beings in the world. Yeah, that's the journey we're on.
Well, I am so appreciative that you are as enthusiastic as you are, because I don't think that's always a guarantee for people in your position. And we're all the better for that. Let me close with this. I'm so curious as to, because you have such a unique path, right? Young people, I think today, the one struggle is to understand what they want to do in a world that continues to change with AI, and then obviously the advancements in biotech and what you're talking about. And it's sort of like, where do I fit? Where do I fit in the story? Like, what do I pursue? How do I understand that one chapter leads to the next? And that's something that you and I think we at least had the advantage of, whether we decided to choose that or not. We did have sort of legacies before us where we could sort of see the steps to progress. You're so fascinating because you have sat at almost every sort of, spot at that boardroom table in the world that you occupy. And I think that's fascinating. And I'm wondering how going through that and sitting at each one of these, whether it's being an ER doctor, working for Boston Consulting Group, right? I mean, all the startup world, the double degrees, the manic episode to get it done. How has that, in essence, changed your DNA, right? It's like returning a car to a rental car facility at the airport or whatever, and you cross over the spikes. You can't back up once you've crossed them when you're returning the car. You, I would imagine, have been changed, forever changed. As a dad, as a husband, as a friend, as a community member. How have those experiences impacted the Matthias that I'm seeing today?
I think in almost every environment where I've been so fortunate to meet good people, smart people, many of them much smarter than I am, helping me to aspire to better world, knowing that nothing is impossible. There are some things that are impossible, but most things that are considered impossible, they're just not. If you work together with smart people, good people, you're creative, there are ways to make this happen faster, better, and at a lower price point. And if we work together, we'll get it done.
And is it fair to say, Matthias, that there is a childlike quality to you? And I mean that as a compliment, meaning when we're young people, maybe we're on a balance beam in gymnastics or something. We don't even know that it's potentially dangerous, right? Which is such a beautiful experience in life for all of us when we're young, is that we just don't understand. So we put the envelope, for better or worse. And I sense that in you. Is it because you're now a dad, you've been a dad, and that has allowed you to prolong sort of that infusion of youthful exuberance, and that tomorrow is another day, the sun will rise, and that alone is sort of jet fuel to your dreams and what you can do to have an impact?
I think it actually started before I became a dad. Being a doctor, what really drives you is to help the patient in front of you, and also the realization, whether as an ER doctor working the night shift, or as an entrepreneur, or as a management consultant, you kind of have to enjoy the pain as well. I said in one interview that to be an entrepreneur, you need to be a masochist, because it's going to hurt a lot of the time. and you kind of need to enjoy that too. But you can probably do or handle that easier if you've seen some successes along the way, and it's worth it. It's worth the investment. And I want to be a good role model for my children, and that is not taking the easy way. It's taking the hard path forward, because that is how you'll achieve great things, making this a better world, making the right quality stem cells available, whether it is through partnerships or setting up clinical trials, whether it's in Stockholm or in the Bahamas, whether it is for superficial aesthetical indications, or if it's for cardiac patients, where, by the way, mesenchymal stem cells have shown that they can lower the, done in the right way, it could lower the risk for heart infarction by more than 60%, stroke as well. And I mean, with those numbers, who does not want to work in this field? Who does not want to help humanity with one or two of the biggest or three of the biggest challenges when it comes to health? But then you need to roll up your sleeves and you need to work hard. And when you do, it's fun. It's truly fun, and you meet fantastic people. So give it your best, and it'll be a great ride.
Well, I don't want to hold you up from your best, which I know you bring on a daily basis, because we're the better for it. Thank you as a global citizen for your commitment, and I know that hopefully the audience will check out Cellco Labs and all that you're doing. But you're doing it thoughtfully. Thankfully, you're doing it methodically, and you're doing it with a great understanding of the context of our times and the implications that good work can have on all of us as a global community. Thank you, Matthias.
Thank you, Rod, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast.